Keep your lumber dry and a sharp eye out. Hey y'all, I'm James Wright and welcome to my shop. Recently I did a video on milling your own lumber and how do you actually make some lumber without a sawmill. And that was great, but I've had a lot of people then asking me, how do you know when it is dry enough to use? If you're drying it out in your shop and you don't know, when can you actually use it? And I kind of wanted to go through using moisture meters. I went out and got a few different ones to show you some different possibilities and some other woods that you might be checking with to show you some of the differences and what is going on here. So how do you know when your wood is dry enough to use? Let's dive in and take a look at the whole pile here. So let's look at the moisture meters and what they're actually telling you. Basically, they're going to be giving you a percentage. They're going to give you a number of 0 to 100% of how much moisture is in the wood itself. So if it were 100%, then this would be water. If it were 50%, then half the weight of the wood would be water. So you can kind of get an idea of how much is in there. Now the problem is, the other things that this has to take into consideration is how dense the wood is, how heavy, how hard the wood is. This pine is a very soft wood, so there's more air inside that has to take into consideration, whereas this white oak is a very dense wood, and so you have to take that into consideration. So I'll have someone who will send me a message and say, my lumber is drying and it says, my moisture meter says it's 16%, is it good to use? I have no idea. I don't know what the settings on your device are. I don't know, what is the average temperature in your area, what is the percentage. I can't tell you based on the number you give me because I don't know how accurate that is. Now, the different ways you can actually test it, these three are actually pin sensors, and basically they'll run a low voltage between the pins and it will read out, and this one says it's at 2%, but then this one is at 5%, and this one is at 1.5%, and then this one is at 10%. Now this one is an inductive sensor. It actually has this plate here, and it puts a field out into the wood and will measure the amount of electrical flow through the wood. The thing you have to take into consideration is how dense is your wood, and so you have to tell your meter how dense is the wood. Now I picked up all of these different meters to kind of give you a different idea of what they are. You get the base model. These three are from Dr. Meter, and this one's from Tack Life. I'll have links to all of these down below, but these three really kind of give you a good view of what you can get in a different meter. This one is the MD12. Basically all it does is it turns on and it turns off. You can change very few settings on it. It's basically just, it gives you a number. And for the general usage, as long as this is the only meter you're using, that's okay. That works well, and it's dirt cheap for the price, and it works really well for what you get. The next step up, this one is an MD912. This one will actually allow you to set the hardness, and it allows you to choose between 4 different hardnesses. So you can look at the book and you can say, yeah, white oak is a number 3 on this, or pine is a number 1 on this, and you can actually choose how hard your wood is, and it'll give you a little bit more accurate number. Whereas this one, then the scanning technology tends to be a lot more accurate because it goes a little bit deeper into the wood. This one will only tell you as far down as the pins can push into the wood, whereas this one can sense a little deeper into the wood. Also, this one then has 10 different settings you can choose for hardness. This is the MD918. Yeah, I'll leave a link to all below, and I really don't know about the differences in them. I just kind of wanted to show you some of the things you can get with different meters. So basically what you want to do to find out how dry the wood is not just go, it's 2%. Is that dry enough? I have no idea. What is the moisture level in your room? So when you bring in a piece of lumber that you're ready to dry, what you generally want to do is take your moisture meter and get the one you're going to be using all the time, stick it in there, and it's going to give you a reading, because this one should be pretty wet. This is the one I just did a video on harvesting wood, and this one is reading 20%, 19.5 to 20%. So I would actually write on the wood 20%. That's its starting weight. And then I'll come back like 6 months later and I'll make another reading, and it'll be a lower number, and I'll write that on there and the date. And I can keep doing that until the number stops changing. And when the number stops changing, then this piece of lumber has met its equilibrium. And so once that number has stopped decreasing, it is at the moisture level. It's not going to release anymore. And whether that is 10%, 12%, 16% depends on your area. If you're in an air-conditioned room, that moisture change might not be much at all from year to year. Whereas if you're in a garage and your moisture changes due to what's outside, at one point in the year you might get down to like 9%. Another point in the year you might be up around 16%. And that's the equilibrium of the wood. Another thing you can do is you can chop off a small piece of the wood and save that with your stack of wood. And that small piece is going to dry much faster, and so you can use that measurement to test that small piece. And when that small piece is the same as your large piece, then you know that all of your main stock is dry and ready to use. All that to be said, basically, it really doesn't matter what number these spit out. If these spit out ABCs, that would be fine, as long as you knew that, you know, when you cut off that small piece of wood to test, that small piece of wood got down to a Q, then you just wait until the rest of your lumber got to a Q. And that tells you that this is dry, it's met its equilibrium. And over the years, the older it gets, the more that equilibrium doesn't change much. This is a seasoned piece of white oak. This has been drying for over 20 years. And most of these are going to say, you know, it's at like 5%. I think this one even says it's at 0%. No, 3.5 now. Whereas this one is going to say 2%. It's extremely dry. It's hard to get an accurate reading on this because of how dry it is, how seasoned this is. It's been in air conditioning for the last 2 years, and before that it was in a barn and air dried. Whereas this piece is air dried, but it's only been air dried for about 3 years. So this piece may change a little bit more with the atmosphere, and you'll get a little bit different reading on this one. Even though these are both white oak, I'm getting 9%, 14%, 13%, 9%. So you can see there is still a number, and I do have all of these currently set for the density of white oak. So they're tending to give you 9% or 14%, and that's why you kind of want to use 1 meter and have that for your measurement for everything, so you kind of have a baseline that you can judge it off of. But that being said, the older the lumber is, the more stable it's going to be. It's not going to change as much. And then there is the whole kiln drying area where you actually are almost burning out the cells inside, and they'll take on moisture, but they'll lose it very quickly. Whereas this air dried changes very slowly. So it'll take on moisture, but it discharges it very slowly. Whereas then for like a comparison, this is pine, and if I were to test it for right now, it's going to say it's at 53% in pine. Whereas if I switch it back to the setting for white oak, it's going to say it's at 30%. So you can see how there's the difference between the hard white oak and the soft pine, and for how heavy this is, for how wet this is. Treated lumber is really, really wet. But all that being said, the number you get on these is really kind of irrelevant until you have a baseline to judge it off of. And that's why my preferred method is actually cutting off a strip of the wood and saving that with the stock so that I can judge on that piece of wood. And I will keep that, and so once that small piece of wood matches the large piece of wood, then I know that these have reached equilibrium. And it's really kind of the easiest way of doing it. And especially if you're ever judging things from one moisture meter to another or one time of year to another, you're going to get erroneous readings that don't tell you if it's dry or not. Now I'm kind of touching the basics of drying wood, and if you want to find out more, I'd definitely say go over to Matt Cremona's channel. He has a far more detailed channel on all the information about milling lumber, drying lumber, storing lumber. Definitely go check out his channel. I'll leave a link to him down below. I'll also leave a link to these 3 meters and kind of give you an idea. You know, if you don't have much money but you want to know what it is, this one is like, I want to say off the top of my head, it's like 20 bucks. It's pretty darn cheap, and it will give you a fairly accurate reading, especially if you're doing it with the method of saving a little piece. If you want some more information, or you're using some hardwoods and some softwoods, the one that allows you to select different types, that will probably give you a little bit better. And if you have the money to use a scanning meter, is really the way to go. It gives you the most accurate measurement as it can get down a little bit deeper, especially if you don't have a lot of air movement. You might have the surface drying out faster than inside, whereas one of these will actually give you a little bit more information about what's inside the wood. So yeah, that's a little bit of information on drying lumber. How do you know when it is actually dry and ready to use? So I hope this has answered a few questions. I'm sure that there are a few that I missed. If you want to ask those down below, please do that. I will try and answer those. So I just want to kind of give you the idea that, you know, it really doesn't matter what the number is until you have a baseline to judge it with. And if you have the money to get a better one with the sensor on the back, it's definitely worth it. But if not, you know, the cheaper one with the pins, that will do you well. I'll leave a link to all these down below. I picked up several of them just to kind of show you the comparisons of different types and different things you can see. I hope that information is valuable for you. And also, if you really want to know more about milling your lumber and drying it, definitely check out Matt Cremona. His channel is just absolutely packed with it. So I hope you liked the video. If you did, please hit like and go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Also, if you want to see some behind the scenes on this channel, my second channel right over here, I want to say an incredible thank you to the patrons on Patreon. You guys are really the reason why I can keep doing this channel. If you'd like to find out more about that, you can do so right down over here. And until next time, have a wonderful day.